Hello folks, and welcome to a slightly different weekend warm-up. I say slightly because normally there'd be a Will Buxton stood here, my partner in crime. Sadly, Will tested positive for COVID-19 before we flew out here to Sochi. The good news is he's in bed, he's feeling well, a little bit rough, but as soon as he's back up and running and the doctor's given him the all clear, he'll be back with us. So all I'll say is from everyone here at F1, Will, get better soon, and we hope to see you back at a track shortly. So in the meantime, you've got me, Lawrence, to guide you through today's events at Sochi ahead of this weekend's Russian Grand Prix. We start here at Mercedes. It's Mercedes country, isn't it? They've won every single Grand Prix that we've ever had at the Sochi Autodrome. Their car just suits this track, and looking at the way that they're running this year, their car's probably going to suit this track once more. Lewis and Valtteri today were quietly confident about their chances this weekend. They never like to get ahead of themselves, Lewis in particular, because obviously if he wins this weekend, he'll match Michael Schumacher's all-time record of 91 victories. So let's see what happens come Sunday afternoon. But Valtteri runs really strong here. He couldn't really put his finger on it when I asked him, what is it about this place that you love so much? He got his first win here, he's been second here these last couple of years. He said, I don't really know, I just settled into the track when he first came here with Williams, and he's been strong ever since. Further down, we've got Ferrari. They've had a bit of a tougher time this year, not enjoying the success perhaps that they expected to enjoy here this last year before they had all that team orders Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel retired and then Charles Leclerc's race went awry as well. This year they've got some small updates. They'll be hoping that they can make at least a few little improvements. Whether or not it'll be enough to make any major steps forwards, the team don't really feel like that. They're trying to play things down at the moment. The idea is that from the next race in Germany, they'll bring a few more updates, and if these updates kind of keep working, it will prove that the correlation is working. Sebastian said it's going to be a difficult weekend. Charles said the same as well. They'll be hoping for a slightly stronger weekend because it's just been such a difficult year for the guys. Glorious day here in Sochi, 25, 26, 27 degrees, going to keep us nice, warm and toasty, and that'll be the case throughout the weekend, so that could have an impact on the tyres. It's obviously a very smooth surface here around the Sochi Autodrome, so we'll just have to wait and see how much that figures into the plans. Careful, Steve, don't get hit by the tree. Thanks very much, Dwayne, for keeping that out of the way. We're just moving now down towards Red Bull. Now, this has never really been a Red Bull track. For whatever reason, Max Verstappen really, when we talked about it today, couldn't really put his finger on it. He's obviously had a miserable run of races, 2 DNFs, after a run of 6 successive podiums. And I mean, usually, you might have your head down, but not Max. He was in a great mood. He was delighted that Honda have brought some countermeasures for the power unit problems that they had in these last 2 races. Honda didn't actually say what the problem was, but we believe that it was to do with the electronics and software issues. So that actually doesn't mean that they'll need to change any of the major components of the engine. Speaking to Alexander Albon, well, he was in a great mood. After he got that podium, that first mega podium of his career, and you can just see there's a bit more of a bounce in his step. He just seems like he's got this added confidence. So let's hope that this weekend he can start putting that together, build some momentum, and hopefully looking forward, Red Bull can start to have a 2-pronged attack on races, because for so long, obviously, it's been Max Verstappen up ahead of him. Next door, we've got McLaren. Carlos and Lando were in, I would say, reasonable mood today. They had quite contrasting race weekends out in Mugello. Lando got a P6, which he actually was really disappointed with, which I think says a measure of how far McLaren have come in the last couple of years. That a P6, when in years gone by they would have been delighted by it, they were a little bit disappointed. For Carlos, well, he's had an up and down year. He had that P2, that mega podium, almost got victory in Monza, and then things didn't go his way when he was caught up in that accident. He's quite keen, like many drivers here, to have a discussion tomorrow in the drivers' briefing about how they look at restarts going forwards. You know, if we have a similar scenario, a few more red flags. In terms of pure pace, I think they're expecting to have a slightly more challenging weekend. But one thing that Lando said was interesting is the team have been really good at executing their races. So when things haven't actually gone always their way, they've just done the best job of their immediate rivals. And because of that, they just ended up with a stronger result than their rivals. And that's what leads them in such a comfortable position in the Constructors' Championship. It's what put Lando in P4 in the Drivers' Championship. He admitted he was surprised to still be there after 9 races beyond the midpoint. But if they can still keep plugging away, making the most of the package that they've got, and that's what they seem to be doing at the moment, it should be a really good, strong end to the season. And who knows what they could achieve? P3 in the Constructors' Championship? Carlos, if he can kind of get some better results on the go, just kind of build some momentum. He's put in so many good races this year. He was talking about how many lost points he's had, really. Results where he should have got big point scores, and it hasn't just worked out for him. Oh, we're at Renault. Spoke to Daniel Ricciardo in the pen today. He was in great form. He said something like, I haven't really been able to speak to the circuit that well. And what he means by that, he hasn't really been able to dial into the circuit. He's had a 4th, 6th, 4th, which I think is his best run since he's joined Renault. I asked him whether perhaps it's bittersweet that things haven't quite gone this well from the very beginning. And obviously, since he's decided to move to McLaren next year, he wasn't sure whether that would kind of, just be slightly disappointing because he's worked so hard on this project. It could be that when he leaves for McLaren, those building blocks that he's put in place will just keep that team going up on the upward rise. We've just arrived here at AlphaTauri. Now, it's been a real mix of results for them of late. They obviously had that real high point in Monza, Pierre Gasly's first victory. I don't think he's really come down from the high and the confidence that's given him. But there's been some really good news for his teammate as well, Danny Kvyat. He's had a real up and down season. Not really for really making many mistakes. It's just that fortune hasn't really been on his side, and he doesn't like to use the word luck or fortune. But even he conceded today that things just haven't really gone his way. But he's ended up on a run of 2 points finishes, which is perfect here in Sochi because he arrives here when we're going to have plenty of fans in the grandstand here for the first time this year. His home race. AlphaTauri have made themselves a midfield team that can score points regularly. So the hope is that they can keep up that record and maybe challenge for that 5th place in the Constructors' Championship that Franz Tost really goes for or really bids for every single season. He's an ambitious man, of course. Next up, we've got Racing Point. They've had a really strong season, obviously, but it's only really been in the last 3 or 4 races that they've really managed to kind of transmit that into results. It was real unfortunate for Lance Stroll, who's running the upgrade in Mugello. Massive upgrade across the car, new side pods, brake ducts. He had an accident when the tyre problem sent him crashing off track, caused significant damage to the car, so much so that he's got a new chassis here this weekend. The other problem was that they only had a suite of new parts for one car. They were aimed to go to Checo because the idea was that they would have both the new package on both cars. Unfortunately, the damage was so significant that they've only now just got one between the two of them. Who gets it? Well, Lance Stroll is ahead in the Drivers' Championship, says the team, and because of that, he gets priority. That means that Checo's going to have to wait at least another race, potentially to Germany. Spoke to him about that in the paddock today, and he was pretty disappointed because he reckons that it's worth enough time, a fair few tenths, that in a really tight midfield battle, that's really going to cause them problems. That could be the difference these days between a mid-point score and maybe not even scoring points at all. So over to Alfa Romeo, Kimi Räikkönen has been in Q2 for the last couple of races. And there's been a number of reasons why things have turned around there. First, it's upgrades, aerodynamic upgrades. That team have been devoid of them all year. So it's really encouraging that the team have been able to finally bring some of those through and just give Kimi and Antonio something to work with, essentially. Kimi's really made the most of those. That performance getting into Q2 and also that race pace, he obviously got points in Mugello as well. It's quite difficult to get a good answer out of Kimi these days, especially because things aren't going particularly well. But there's a definite, clear picture that he feels happier. He seems happier with what's going on at the moment, and that correlates with the fact that the car is just performing much better. Antonio, he was gutted, obviously, to be involved in the accident in Mugello, that multi-car accident. Good news is he was okay, walked away unharmed. In his home race in Mugello, it was just disappointing that he couldn't give the few fans that we had finally arrived at a track enough of an opportunity or enough things to cheer about. Here, I think they should have a stronger weekend. I think their aim of kind of battling into Q2, battling with the Hasses and the Williams, is a very fair one. I think you will probably expect to see at least Kimi probably get out of Q2. We'll talk about Williams a little bit later, but I do think it's going to be quite a tight battle. Oh, there's Günther. This has worked out well. Now I can grill you about how things are going on your end. Lots of talks about...
Slow.
Slow? How slow?
Too slow.
Do you think there's any chance of that changing this year?
No, it's very difficult. We are not having any upgrades this year because of the obviously the situation we ended up in with COVID, the furlough and then the reduced budget. So we decided not to do anything because the time is very short anyway to introduce it, and now it's too late because you've got 8 races to go. So we're not doing anything. We just try to get the best out of the car at every race, which is pretty challenging.
There was a lot of talk about drivers today. I heard you were talking about drivers, maybe having a Ferrari junior driver in your car for a practice session?
Could be at some stage this year. I mean, we are talking with Ferrari about it, but nothing has been decided, so it could be, but wait we have to wait a little bit longer to decide if we do it or not.
How does it feel to have a seat that so many drivers are fighting over?
I don't know, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Because it is a good thing you have the choice, but in the end it's a very difficult choice because we cannot just see the short term like normally you see. We are in a challenging situation. Next year is a complete different year because it's the last year with this regulation on the car. We know the car is not fantastic, so what we will do everything for 22. So now thinking, next year we need to have the best driver on the market possible. Maybe that's not the right thing to do for the mid to long term. And we are here for the long term, so we need to base our decision where do we want to be in 3 years. Because there I think where this new regulation with the budget cap and comes to our benefit, for the small teams' benefit. So there is very good driver on the market, and those as they should all be in F1. Unfortunately, F1 has only 20 seats.
No.
You know, it's not like, for example, football, where if you go from one club, every club has got at least 11 players on the field and then a few more on the sideline. You know, there is plenty of positions here. It is like it's a very tough environment, and not everybody who is good, who is talented, can get a seat.
And that just leaves us in time to talk about Williams. Williams are so close in Mugello to a point with George Russell. It was such a good drive, and Sebastian Vettel said that he was impressed and almost felt sorry for him. I think he called him a poor soul because he didn't get that point that I think George or many people in the paddock feel deserves that point. It'll be an interesting weekend for these guys because over the last couple of races they've really emerged as kind of on par with the likes of Haas and Alfa Romeo, and that's why George Russell was talking about trying to get into Q2. For them, you know, that was unheard of last year. He was talking about looking at the data, and normally they were at the bottom of the sheet and the rest of them were so far up that you wouldn't even really talk about that kind of thing. Oh, hello, that's Carlos. Enjoy your run, Carlos? You pretended not to see me. Is Sochi a good place for you? Looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anymore what to expect. In Monza we thought we were going to be bad. We were great. In Mugello we thought we were going to be great. We were bad. So I'm not doing any predictions anymore.
Okay, well, fingers crossed it's a better weekend for you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much.
Bye.
Have a good evening. And that, I think, is that, seeing as we've run out of paddock to talk about. Thank you very much for joining us. Another get well soon to Will. Hope you're back in the paddock with us shortly, just to keep me company out here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.